I would just say that cyber criminals are relentless. They will never quit trying to breach an organization. And if they are successful in breaching in our industry, it usually takes, in my opinion, additional human error for a loss to occur.
Welcome to BuzzHouse, a Baker Tilly podcast where you can find all the buzz around multifamily housing. I'm Don Bernards, the partner in charge of Baker Tilly's multifamily housing practice.
And I'm Garrick Gibson, a partner at Baker Tilly, also specializing in consulting on multifamily housing transactions across the country.
Each week, we'll bring you a guest or a topic in the multifamily housing industry that will help you win now and anticipate tomorrow. Let's get started. Garrick and I are very excited to welcome into the BuzzHouse today two guests to discuss the topic of cybersecurity. Our two guests include Chris Hand, the president and owner of ACC Management Group, along with our colleague at Baker Tilly, Ken Zoline, a senior manager with our risk, internal audit, and cybersecurity team. We look forward to a great conversation. We'll kind of get this intersection and feedback from Ken, who's someone who focuses time on the cybersecurity space, along with Chris's experience with the multifamily property management space. So again, kind of a neat intersection of insights. It seems like, when we were kind of playing this, it's an area where a lot of people think, why would anyone, want to cyber attack their company? So really looking forward into getting into this discussion. And with a lot to cover, we're going to jump right into the conversation. Garrick?
Thanks, Don, for that intro. And so starting with Chris, would the two of you just go ahead and let our listeners know about your professional backgrounds? And Chris, also a little bit about ACC management.
Sure. I got my start in property management almost 20 years ago at a company in Madison, where I spent a lot of time working with small, affordable, subsidized apartment buildings throughout rural Wisconsin. And about 6 years ago, I made the transition to Oshkosh for the opportunity to join and eventually obtain ownership of ACC. At ACC, we work primarily in the low-income housing tax credit and Section 8 housing programs, but we dabble in a few other affordable housing programs as well. And we've been very fortunate to grow into one of the larger firms that manages affordable housing in Wisconsin. And as a result, we're focusing more on topics like the one we're going to discuss today.
Perfect. Ken, why don't you go ahead and give us a little bit about your professional background?
Thanks. Hello, I'm Ken Zoline. I'm a senior manager in Baker Tilly's Risk Advisory Services practice, focusing on cybersecurity, IT risk, vulnerability, and compliance assessments, as well as cyber attack simulations and penetration testing. I have 25 plus years of advisory experience in security and networking, 4 years of director level experience developing and managing a cybersecurity and risk management program for SPSS Inc., which was acquired by IBM a number of years ago, and 4 years of security operations management experience working for IBM Global Technology Services. Additionally, I've taught college-level courses in cybersecurity, cybercrime, and networking. I'm also a certified information system security professional and a certified ethical hacker. Back to you.
I like that, ethical hacker. So we obviously got a good background from our two guests. So why don't we just go ahead and jump into it? So we'll start with Ken on this question, and then we can go into some questions for Chris. So we hear about cybersecurity in the news and on TV. So let's go ahead and start the dialogue of actually, what does cybersecurity mean to you?
Well, cybersecurity is the protection of assets from threats that could cause harm. And threats are all sorts of attacks from the internet or using a computer or the internet, whereas harm is a loss resulting from a successful attack, such as the loss of information or system security, loss of capital, loss of revenue, loss of intellectual property, customer and employee trust, fines and lawsuits related to data breaches, and unplanned recovery expenses. So cybersecurity is a lot, but I like to look at it from a more pragmatic perspective, and that is cybersecurity is the protection of assets from cybercrime, protecting them from theft, fraud, extortion, and denial of service or use. So in our world, there are cyber criminals, and like the criminals of past and present, they're motivated by money. Cyber criminals want to steal money. They want to steal physical assets that can be traded or sold. They want to steal information that can be monetized. They want to sell access to another third party for their use. And cyber criminals employ numerous means or attacks to conduct their criminal activity, like social engineering, malicious software, ransomware, and hacking. And cyber criminals like to search for or create the right opportunity to conduct an attack, where we, as security practitioners, call that right opportunity a vulnerability. And a vulnerability can be a human vulnerability, a weakness in a person, their susceptibility to social engineering. It can be a technical vulnerability, meaning there's a missing software patch or a system is weakly configured. Or there can be an operational vulnerability, such as an error or omission, even something like a missing or guessable password. All of these things create vulnerabilities that cyber criminals look for in order to prey upon us.
Thanks, Ken, for that technical explanation. That's great. Chris, what does cybersecurity mean to you, especially within your organization?
I'll be very simple on this. It's really access to our system, passwords, our network. And really what we found is it's like Ken said, it's all about money. That's what cyber criminals are after. And that's what it's about. It's just really protecting the assets that we manage for others.
Thanks. Great. That being said, let's get into some real life experiences then. So can both of y'all share one or two real life experiences where your organization or one of your clients was successfully attacked? Like what happened, what kind of harm occurred, and what lessons did you learn from that? We can start with you, Chris.
Sure. Well, unfortunately, I do have a little experience in this area, and we had a breach when we were transitioning from a server-based system to a cloud-based system. And so we were learning about, the new system. And I can say today we're far better prepared and set up than, you were when you first transitioned. But really what happened is somehow someone got a password, logged into somebody's Office 365 account and was emailing on their behalf. And they were looking for keywords, that sort of thing. Not really caring about any type of conversation that didn't have to do with money. But when one came up about money, kind of latched onto that. And so they're interested in wire instructions, those sorts of things. Seen fraudulent invoices created and sent through, trying to get payment made. So one small case happened where somebody sent a spoof email, which was not a breach of the system, but it's a spoof email, and asked someone in human resources to change the account for direct deposit on payroll. Seen some really wild things like that happen, which is kind of like throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what'll stick in some cases. But yeah, those are the types of things that we've seen happen really after the money, and seeing if someone would break down on protocol.
Thanks. And I'm sure, Ken, you have probably many examples. Give us, maybe something real life that kind of complements that.
Sure. And I do, sadly. I can't even begin to count how many new attacks or issues I've been made aware of or dealt with clients recently. But a couple that come to me personally, the case of a family member who received an email from a close friend who said that he was stranded in Europe somewhere. And the person who was supposedly stranded requested that the friend wire some funds to him because he had no money. And the family member friend did that. And in fact, the email did not come from the family member's friend. It was forged. And how did somebody know to do that? Because the family member friend had posted on his Facebook that he was going to Europe and would be out of touch, and was so excited that he was traveling through very remote areas of Italy and Switzerland and would be out of touch with the world. I was looking forward to that. So a cyber criminal used that information and forged an email, looked through the friends of the person who was traveling, and was able to send a very simple letter to all these people and was able to probably get thousands and thousands of dollars as a result. Another example that recently came to my attention was an organization that had suffered a ransomware attack. And it was really a multi-pronged ransomware attack, meaning that one of the organization's end users had brought a laptop home, presumably had given the laptop to family members to use because they needed another computer to use for homeschooling and playing, and brought the computer back into the office, and it was infected. And the computer proceeded to attach the malicious software, and eventually ransomware was downloaded, and the organization was given a note that their critical business systems were locked up, much like some of the other larger ransomware exploits that we read about this past spring. And to add insult to injury, after the organization chose to pay a ransom, they learned that their data was also being posted on a public website with customer names and the like. And if the organization didn't pay a second fee, now that it's extortion, they would be shamed, and their customers would be shown that they didn't have adequate security to protect customer identity and transactions. So they essentially paid twice, and it was a big hardship for the organization.
Yeah, like you said, Ken, it seems to go on and on and on from a simple, spoof, whatever the right word is, to more complex. It's just, I can't even imagine keeping up with it, honestly. I'm sure the people are getting smarter and smarter. I guess we'll call them cyber criminals, or what the right word is. So maybe again, back to Chris and Ken, maybe kind of a next question that we have is, right, what should people, be doing? I know people, listeners are from, small, single, sole, almost proprietors to larger, companies. And maybe we'll even start with Chris. What's been top of mind? What kind of things that you have done? And then Ken, maybe in some other ideas. I know you work with all kinds of companies. So Chris, what have you done? What are you thinking about doing, or what's, top of mind?
The part of the structure of our business, being a management company, we manage funds, operational funds, things like that for many different clients. And so we need to protect that and ensure it's very well protected. The first thing is education with all of the staff about the barrage of breach attempts, right? Which is a simple email saying a password is expired or something along those lines. I mean, we've all seen them. We all get them. We all delete them. We keep that sort of thing in front of the staff, continually educate on, well, this one looks very real, this sort of thing, and educate to never put in your password. They don't, these don't expire, that sort of thing. And just make it a topic. So that's number one. Number two is internal controls. It's very important. One of the advantages to working in the affordable housing industry is that all of these properties get audited by Baker Tilly, by others. And so an internal control test is completed. So we have the advantage of going over those sorts of conversations and have really strong internal controls in place with multiple approval levels on invoices, with like graduating approval levels, $1,000, $2,500, $10,000. That thing where it needs an additional signature after every threshold. So just more eyes on those sorts of things. What we've seen is the cyber criminals are after larger dollar amounts. Something simple, which still kind of amazes me, that doesn't happen as much as it, in my opinion, as it should, is voice verification. It's a very simple security technique for doing a wire transfer. We live in a world where everyone wants to move very fast, very quickly, and electronically. And a very simple technique is to voice verify with whoever the receiving individual is on the other end of the wire, or whoever's asking you to do the wire, make the call. And banks today don't even do that all the time, which again, it amazes me, but we do. And it's very simple, doesn't cost anything, and it's highly effective. So those are some of the simple things that we do to just make sure we've got very solid procedure in place to counteract any cyber crime attempts.
Ken, how about what are you doing, with your customers and in general on what are some steps these companies should be doing?
Well, that's a great question. I first would like to offer 5 ideas, and these are my ideas and don't necessarily represent the thoughts and practices of Baker Tilly. 1, performing ongoing user security awareness training that focuses on internet hygiene and social engineering awareness. This is perhaps the lowest hanging fruit that if you can pull it off the tree and grab it, it will provide the greatest payback to the organization. The second thing is implementing effective malware defense. Malware means malicious software, and the malicious software defense should include email filtering. The third thing that needs to be done is to continuously manage vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities need to be continuously identified, and once identified, some kind of treatment needs to be applied. So that treatment typically is patching vulnerable software, but it also may be correcting a weakness or misconfiguration in a program or a system. And lastly, every organization should consider acquiring cyber liability insurance. The reason for acquiring cyber liability insurance is twofold. 1, it provides a backstop for addressing losses that may result from ransomware or other kinds of cyber attacks. But perhaps more preventatively, the cyber liability insurance will lead each insurance applicant through a series of questions about how they handle their respective security in their organization. And in following this checklist, it will actually help to improve the organization's cybersecurity capability.
Ken, just real briefly, obviously people can reach out to you. I know we'll have your information on our website. What are maybe some other references that people just want to quickly look themselves for other ideas or references for improving cybersecurity?
Sure, thank you. So 3 outstanding resources that are free and widely available, and we're going to post the URLs in the podcast information, are these. The first is the SANS Institute, but they offer a number of resources, including a program called Securing the Human and other kinds of user awareness training programs that organizations can freely use or for minimal price adopt. They also publish a variety of newsletters that discuss cybersecurity issues that are arising, that offer security alerts. And one of them, my favorite reading, is called Ouch, Security Awareness. It's pretty self-explanatory, but it talks about the past week's most prevalent kinds of social engineering attacks that are being seen. The second resource is the Center for Internet Security. They publish something called Critical Security Controls, which are a prioritized set of safeguards to mitigate the most prevalent cyber attacks that organizations may face. The third resource is the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, which is a much larger version of the critical security controls that I just mentioned. The critical security controls offer 20 controls that you can do the top 5, top 10, top 20. And the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, last time I counted, was maybe on the order of 106 security categories. But it's focused on 5 very important functions, which are identify, prevent, detect, respond, and recover. So all these resources are available to everyone, and they offer a lot of great ideas that you can choose to implement.
Thanks for that. As we obviously we're getting backed up with time, and thanks for being on here. But before we go, Chris, what about any closing thoughts on everything we've discussed so far?
I would just say that cyber criminals are relentless. They will never quit trying to breach an organization. And if they are successful in breaching in our industry, it usually takes, in my opinion, additional human error for a loss to occur. So my suggestion would be put the simple practices in place, review them from time to time with appropriate staff members, and you'll likely be just fine, even if a breach does occur. And of course, doing all the things that Ken mentioned with malware defense and insurance and those sorts of things. What we found is that the simple practices are very, very effective.
Awesome. Ken, what about any closing thoughts from you based on everything that we've discussed so far?
Thanks, Garrick. I agree with Chris that many of the simple practices that he described are very important practices to consider implementing to improve an organization's cybersecurity. In my opinion, many organizations, however, tend to be less process focused and more inclined to throw tools at the cybersecurity challenge. Although tools are necessarily important, they're generally insufficient to well address cybersecurity. And that's because, based on the size and complexity of your business and the scope of its operations, the simple solutions that I walked through a few minutes ago may not be sufficient for addressing your organization's cybersecurity risk. And something more comprehensive and interlocking is needed. So I like to recommend 8 things. It's a program. It's important to develop, document, and implement and maintain a comprehensive cybersecurity program. The second is ownership. It is important to employ and contract a qualified individual or third party who is charged to develop, implement, and maintain and operate an organization's cybersecurity program. Third, there must be awareness, going back to what I said earlier, that organizations must rigorously address workforce security awareness on an ongoing basis. Fourth, there must be vigilance, that vulnerabilities must be identified and mitigated on an ongoing basis. Fifth, there must be oversight. Organizations rely more and more and more on business partners, business associates, service providers, and other third parties for vital aspects of their business operation. And it is extremely important that the security arrangements of all these third parties are overseen by the organization that is contracting those organizations to provide services. 6 is preparedness. It is very important to have a documented and tested set of procedures for responding to and recovering from security incidents, including ransomware and data breaches. Number 7 is assurance. Organizations should hire an independent and well-qualified third party to conduct a comprehensive cybersecurity assessment on a recurring basis. And number 8 is cyber risk. It is important to identify and manage organization cyber risks that are the result of ineffective or missing cybersecurity practices. So doing all of these things results in the ability to look at what controls are weak, what controls are not, what controls are strong, what controls are not well implemented, and because of these weaknesses or gaps, what risk they create back in the organization. And addressing cyber risk allows the organization to improve their controls, improve their program, and better able to address the ever-changing and evolving threat landscape that confronts us. So performing these 8 activities that I've described, that will be again in the podcast reference, will help organizations improve their cybersecurity posture. Thanks.
Very good. Very good. And well, thank you both, Chris and Ken. Very good information. Thank you for joining the BuzzHouse today. And listeners, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening to BuzzHouse. To receive a notification when new episodes are available, Please subscribe to BuzzHouse, a Baker Tilly podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. For additional resources around multifamily housing, check out bakertilly.com. And if you have a suggested topic, please send them to build@bakertilly.com. That's BUILD@bakertilly.com.